What's up, everybody? I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'll be breaking down our next matchup for UFC Fight Night Perf. And oh my god, we have Junior Tafa taking on Kevin Christian. Oh my god, this is honestly one of the toughest fights to call in the whole card. Is this and one other fight? That's going to be the main card opener, but we're not there yet. Not because this is high level, not at all, but because both guys have some glaring holes in their game. It's one of those matchups where you're basically asking who can impose their strength first before their weaknesses get exposed. I have struggled with this one. Look at our two fighters, starting with Kevin Christian. He's currently 9-3 as a professional, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Now, Christensen recently lost his UFC debut about 5 months ago to Billy Elicana. It's not a terrible loss. I think Elicana is actually pretty good and a pretty good prospect for the division. But the problem with Kevin Christensen so far, and I'll get more to it in the breakdown, I just don't know if he's really that good or UFC level. Now, he has physical tools. He's 6'7" with an 80-inch reach. That's very impressive. And he has some finishing ability, but it's against low-level opposition in the regional scene. Very low level. And Kevin Christensen, so far, we just saw, Elicana blew him out of the water. I just don't know if he's fully UFC level yet, or at the very least, can his game improve enough to be UFC level. Now, he takes on Junior Tafa, who's currently 6-5 as a professional, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. For Tafa, former heavyweight, brother of Justin Tafa, and he was on a bit of a skid, losing to Marcos Rogerio de Lima, then Walter Walker. Granted, those names aren't really bad. Did get a win against Sean Sharaf, but then Tafa, smartly, mind you, finally moved down to light heavyweight, but it hasn't done him wonders. He's been submitted by Tuco Tucos and Billy Elicana himself, which was not that long ago. That was that was this February. Oh, man. I'll get more into the breakdown as well, but Junior Tafa, he ain't good either. I mean, he has good power and good kickboxing, that's it. But even then, he can be outstruck, as you saw with Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I understand that was a day's notice, but come on. The former kickboxer can't even check one leg kick. That's pretty ridiculous, in my opinion. It's who's the lesser of two evils? This is really what you got to ask yourself at the end of the day. So, I don't know. But usually fights like this where it's low-level guys, at least will be fun, right? Regional MMA type of fun, in my opinion. So with that out of the way, let's get down to the breakdown. Starting with Junior Tafa. Tafa's game is very simple. Actually, both Tafa brothers' game is pretty simple. They're strikers. Kickboxing background for Junior Tafa, heavy hands, and real power, especially for this division. Even when he was fighting a heavyweight, there was Tafa carried the same danger, just without the weight cut. Now back at light heavyweight, the power's still there. On the feet, Tafa's got decent timing, good instincts, and the kind of explosiveness that can end a fight quickly. I mean, we've seen flashes of it, right? In that Billy Elicana fight, he dropped him and nearly had Elicana out of there. And no, that's not nothing. Like I said, I think Billy Elicana is actually a really good fighter. And his upcoming fight with Iwo Baranovsky is going to be a real interesting fight of light heavyweight prospects. But once you move past the striking, this is where everything just goes downhill from here. Tafa's ground game is atrocious. His takedown defense is ass. That's it, dude. His takedown defense is just not reliable whatsoever. I mean, he can defend some takedowns, at least the initial shot, but if you chain wrestle, you're going to take Tafa down. And then from there, his submission defense is just so bad. I mean, the way Elicana got the back and cinched up the choke with minimal effort. I mean, one, it shows how good he is, but at the same time, it really shows how bad Justin Tafa is, not even trying to fight the hands. It's just his awareness in the grappling is just not great. I understand he's a former kickboxer, but we've seen former kickboxers have good understanding of grappling. I mean, shoot, look at Mansour Abdul Malik, who has the instincts to fight the hands. Tafa doesn't. If someone can consistently grapple him, there's a very clear path to beating him. So with Tafa, it's always the simple question. If the fight stays standing, he's dangerous and he has a shot. If it hits the ground, he's in trouble. Now, looking at Kevin Christian, he's kind of the opposite in some ways. Like I say, big guy for the division at 6'7" with an 80-inch reach. And when Christian uses that length properly, he can be effective at range. He's got pretty good long-distance attacks and some decent striking moments, but it's not particularly tight or consistent. Defensively, Christian is very hittable. We saw it in his debut. A lot of Christian's defense is what I like to call tall man's defense. That's where you're taller than most of your contemporaries in the division. So you mostly rely on leaning back from shots in order to avoid getting hit, stand straight up, kind of play the range game. But it oftentimes leaves fighters like him, their chins exposed, and they don't manage distance well, and that's a dangerous habit against someone, especially with the power of Junior Tafa. But where Christensen does have an edge in this fight is on the ground. Christensen does have grappling, does have wins by submission. In fact, he won his Contender Series fight via triangle armbar. Granted, it was against a 4-0 fighter, so really, what does that tell you? I at least think Christensen is comfortable enough to attack submissions from both bottom or top position. And against someone like Tafa, that's a huge factor because, he doesn't need to be elite. He just needs to be competent in the grappling to beat Junior Tafa. And like I said, against Tafa, competent grappling can go a long way in that fight. So stylistically, this fight is extremely binary. Tafa wants it standing. Christian should, and I emphasize should, want it to be on the ground. There's not a lot of gray areas here for me. If Christian gets a takedown or forces grappling exchanges, he has a real chance of winning, whether it's just through control for 15 minutes or a submission. But if he can't get there, he's stuck standing with a guy who hits harder than him and has the ability to end a fight in any moment. So, how does the fight play out? I think early on, everything favors Tafa. I mean, the classic saying in MMA, the fight always starts on the feet. And that's where Tafa's most dangerous. He'll have the power advantage, the confidence, and likely the better moments in those initial exchanges. It's Christian's job to survive the early phases and find a way to close the distance, whether that's through a clinch, a level change, or just simply capitalizing on a mistake. Christian, he needs to get the fight out of striking range, because the longer it stays on the feet, the more it plays in Tafa's hands. But even in one sloppy exchange, a bad shot or a knockout that leads to a scramble, or hell, like Tafa dropping Christian and then falling him to the ground, those are Christian's path to victory. Finding the submission. I cannot emphasize enough that I think Kevin Christian will win this fight. If he wins this fight, he would win by submission. But while it's on the feet, Tafa has a real chance of knocking him out, man. That's the problem. It's like, whose weakness do I think is worse than the other, essentially? I'm not going to say who sucks less. That's not what I'm saying. But who is a little more reliable? So for my final assessment, this is one of those fights where both guys are very beatable and both have very clear weaknesses. Honestly, if they fought different people, I'd probably pick those people to beat them 9 out of 10 times. Christian probably has a more well-rounded path, especially if he can grapple, but getting there is the issue. Tafa, for all of his flaws, has the one thing that can override everything else in a fight like this: power. And when you get a hittable opponent in front of you, that at the end of the day matters. So, my official prediction: I'm picking Junior Tafa, and I'm going to pick him via knockout. Not a confident pick at all. I'm not confident on who I was going to pick in this fight, because the moment this fight hits the ground, everything just flips on its head. But with fights always starting on the feet, and given the difference in power and striking, I lean towards Tafa finding the first shot and probably the knockout blow. So, once again, I'm picking Junior Tafa, and I'm going to pick him via knockout. But with that being said, that's been my prediction for this matchup. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below on who you think's going to win. Until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. And remember, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see y'all next time.